Hey, welcome back to my channel. Nice to see you. Thanks for checking this out again. Today's class is posterior pelvic tilt. I've spoken with a few of you and people have reached out, and there isn't a lot of yoga that does this, that touches on it, so hopefully I can help you out a little bit with that. Your practice is not all lost. We have to do things a little bit differently. So for the practice, highly recommend having a blanket or a bolster, a strap, and some blocks. If you don't have those things, that's fine. You can use books. I have a rolled up blanket, and then whatever else for a strap. Okay, so let's get started. So if you have your blanket with you, you're just gonna place it underneath your sit bones. And the idea here is that we're just tilting the pelvic bone forward. So instead of our normal hunched over version, we're keeping the belly nice and tall, and the pelvic bone is nice and even. You want to think of your pelvic bone as a bowl of water. So ideally the bowl of water would be stable and even. Anterior means that you'd be spilling it out forward, in front of you, sorry, and posterior means you'd be going backwards. It'd be spilling out the back. So we want to correct that posterior pelvic tilt. We want to bring our bowl up to neutral, our pelvic bone up to neutral. So let's start here. And let's just find our nice comfortable seat. Closing the eyes. And let's just start moving inwards. Start arriving in our practice today. I'm starting to just bring some awareness to the breath. I'm starting to feel the natural rise and fall of the belly. Letting any distractions, just letting them be. Just focusing on where you are today. Focusing on this practice, not worrying about what came before, what might come afterwards. And just sit and breathe. And with that, we'll start on the left side. Let's drop our left arm to the side. Inhale that right arm up and over, and give a nice stretch to that side. You want to keep the right sit bones driving towards the floor here. And then we're lifting out of the right side of the ribs as well. So lots going on in this little stretch. While staying in tune with the breath, we inhale back up through center, and we'll switch sides. Drawing the left arm up and over, driving that left sit bone to the floor. Our shoulder stays up and back, and we're breathing. And inhale back through center. We're just going to move through some essentially pelvic tilts here, kind of like a cat-cow. So we're just going to inhale, reach the pelvic bone forward, and then exhale, round it out. So very similar to a cat-cow, just a smaller version. And out, in, and out, and out. And then coming back through neutral, placing the left hand on the left thigh. Let's inhale, roll the shoulders up and back, and bring ourselves into a twist to the right side. Nice gentle twist. It's the beginning of our practice. We don't have anything to prove. Just take it nice and easy here. Breathing and twisting. Coming back through center. Release the twist, and we'll switch sides. On the inhale, we roll our shoulders up and back, and the exhale, we twist. Keeping the shoulders rolled down. Awesome. All right, let's get rid of our blanket for the time being. We're going to come into some actual cat-cows now. Sorry, Leah. So shoulders are over the wrists. Our hips are over our knees. And it's up to you. You can keep your toes tucked or you can keep them flat. I like to keep them tucked. And we're going to move through some cat-cow. So on the inhale, you drop the belly down, look up. And then on the exhale, we draw the belly in and round it all out. Now, we're not super worried about our upper back in this practice. So you just want to focus on the lower body. So really try to get some movement into that pelvic bone. Feel into the rounding and then the arching. And here you're really poking the butt out, feeling into it, kind of starting to make that mind muscle connection with your glutes and with your lower back. And then finding stillness in center. Let's just draw the right leg out to the back of the mat, and you can push through that heel towards the back. So a nice calf stretch here. If your knee hurts on your left side, you can untuck the toe, fold the mat over, and just breathing here. And then on the inhale, just lift that leg up. So here we're really squeezing into the glutes, holding the leg. If you'd like to add on, you can bring the left arm up as well. And just breathing. Exhale, bring the hand and the knee down, and we'll switch sides. Left leg comes out to the back of the mat. Push through that heel, and we want to make sure we're not rounding our pelvic bone here. We're keeping it still as neutral as we can. We're not arching it, we're not rounding it. We're just keeping it nice and neutral. And breathing. And then inhaling that leg up, squeezing in through the glutes. And again, if you want to add on, we draw our right hand out in front. And exhaling, bring the hand and the knee down. Awesome. So let's come into our puppy pose. So we're just going to crawl our hands forward and let the chest fall towards the mat. So wherever we get to, doesn't matter how far you go down. The idea here is the chest is coming first, and we're bringing a nice rounding into the upper back. Nice opening into the shoulders. And at the same time, stretching out our glutes. And breathing here. Making sure that in heart openers we're staying in a place where the breath feels natural. And then inhale, coming back up. We'll just move right into a Cobra. Keeping the shoulders rolled back and down. And then we exhale down to the floor. Bring your hands out wider than the mat. Inhale, roll the shoulders up and back. And then exhale, bring it back down. Inhale up. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale down. And one more like this. Inhale up. And exhale down. Beautiful. Bringing the hands underneath you. Might need to scooch back on your mat. Bring the elbows underneath your shoulders. Hands are nice and flat. Let's just relax here in sphinx for a second. So again, drawing that belly down, feeling that arch in the back, feeling the rounding of the back. Back bends are, I'm not going to say our best friend, but they're a good friend of ours. We want to teach the back to do something different than it has been doing potentially our entire life. So just taking it nice and easy. And then inhaling, coming back up. Let's just draw right back up all the way to the heels and just take a moment here, closing the eyes. Let's just start rolling out our shoulders. Let's go backwards first. And then pausing and go the other way. Awesome. So let's come back into our puppy. So knees are hips width. Walk the hands out in front of you. And just drop the chest down. We don't have anywhere we need to be here. So just come as far as you can. Make sure it's nice and comfortable. If this is too much, you can always put blocks underneath the elbows or underneath the forearms. and just not come down as far. If this is not enough, you can also put blocks underneath the arms, but in a different spot. And inhale, come back up through center. Hands underneath the shoulders. And let's inhale our right arm up out wide. And then exhale, thread that arm underneath the left arm, coming in to a thread the needle. We want to try and keep our hips as square as possible here. And breathing. Inhale back through center. Placing that right hand down, and we'll draw the left arm up nice and wide, and then exhale, thread it under. Letting the side of the face fall down to the mat. And breathing here. Feeling this nice twist in the lower back. As well as the stretch in the shoulder. And then inhale, back up through center. Next, we're going to move through some down dog. So, one thing that may work, this will look a lot different for a lot of people. So one thing that helps are blocks underneath the heels or potentially underneath the feet. So it's up to you. So ideally, let's say the wrong way to do downward dog is like this. We have a big arch in our lower back. So what we want to do is like we did in cat-cow, we want to drop our bellies down and then start throwing the hips up to the sky like this. You may only get to here, and that's okay. This is a version of a down dog. It kind of looks more like a dog than down dog does, but this may be your version. You may want to step onto blocks to bring a little bit more height into the postures, so you can draw your shoulders down a bit more, and then eventually working towards straightening those legs. But we're not in any rush. So keeping the legs nice and bent, we draw the hips up as high as we can while drawing our bellies towards our thighs. Not worrying about how it looks, just worrying about how it feels. If you're on the blocks, kicking them away. And then let's inhale that right leg up to the sky, and we'll step through. Drop the back knee. Great. So we'll need the blocks for this one. Sorry, could have told you before. We'll need the blocks for this one. So we're going to come into some some hamstring stretches. Excuse me. We're going to come into some hamstring stretches here. So what we want to do, one thing that is a bit stretchier for us is already, like our hip flexors are already pretty stretchy. So we're not worrying too much about stretching the hip flexors, but we do want to bring a nice stretch into the back of the leg. So we'll just start in a low lunge, and then we inhale and we come back up. And here you just play with the blocks. You might not even be able to get to the blocks yet, and that's okay. You just sit up nice and tall, hips are square, and then we just reach our pelvic bone forward. So you can literally put your hands on your hips and feel it tilt forward, and you'll start feeling it pretty quickly. And then these are mostly just here for balance while we're at the beginning. And if you want to change the dynamic of the posture, you can pull the toes towards the shins. And just really feeling into it. You can kind of feel when you start rounding that lower back, you can sort of you'll get to know when you can feel it. When you're doing it. So trying to make that connection is really important. Let's just bring our right foot back down. And using a mirror is very helpful for this. You'll find some yogis that say don't ever use a mirror, but I find when you're trying to correct something, it's quite helpful. So let's inhale, let's place that left foot forward, and let's just come into our low lunge on the left side. And then we're not going to stay here for long. Let's inhale back to our half splits with or without a dog on your foot. And same thing here. So we want to square off the hips and then tilt forward. And playing with whether that foot is pointed or whether that toes are drawn towards you. If the toes are drawn towards you, it just brings it down a little bit lower, the stretch. And then knowing that those blocks are there if you need them. And breathing here. And then let's place that foot back down. We can walk with our blocks and step to the tops of our mats. Beautiful. So let's move through some sun salutations. We're going to do them a little bit differently, so let's just move through them. So let's inhale our arms up nice and wide, and then we exhale. We're just coming halfway. We inhale, halfway lift. You can just look up a little bit, and then exhale, coming back down. Inhale all the way up, and exhale, hands through heart center. So we're not going through all of the movements folding downwards because we don't want to tilt our pelvic bone in the wrong way. So we want to inhale our arms up, and then we exhale, drawing the belly down, keeping that arch in the lower back. And then we inhale, we can just lift the chest a little bit. Exhale, we come back down. And then inhale, come all the way back up. And exhale, hands through heart center. Let's do it one more time. So inhale, arms up. Exhale, folding in half, folding forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, folding down. And then inhaling, coming all the way back up. Exhale, hands through heart center. Great. So those are our sun salutations. So we're going to come in to our version of a forward fold now. So I'm just going to step back a little bit for this. So let's grab a block. And here, we're just going to fold it down, but instead of folding, rounding down, we're going to draw our belly forward, and then we're going to reach for that block. So the block might be really far away, and that's fine. You can always stack blocks on top of blocks. They're good for that. So wherever we are, a good way to get into this is find a good block height, bend into the knees so you can really arch that lower back, and then start straightening the legs. And this is maybe where we stay. And we breathe. So here we can feel the entire backs of the legs working, they're stretching, and you can play with how low you go. You're welcome to do that, but two things to be careful for here, and one is you don't want to get yoga butt, so make sure that you're not putting too much effort into the forward fold. You want to be really gentle as we start opening these hamstrings and these glute muscles. And the other thing you want to watch out for is that you're not rounding into this as you lower. So if you lower, you want to lower with the chest going towards the blocks. And we stay here and we breathe, trying to keep the hips over the knees. It's easier said than done without a mirror of some sort, but trying to keep that alignment in play. Awesome. And then inhaling back up through center. Okay. So let's move our blocks to the side. And the next one we're going to come into is pyramid. So I will show you with the right foot first. So we want to keep our feet nice and wide. And a more challenging version of this is keeping the feet together, but since we're not really going very far down, let's keep our feet nice and wide so we don't have to worry about our balance. We can just worry about where our pelvic bone is, how we're doing the fold. So we're just going to keep the legs about a leg's distance. You may need to play, might be shorter, might be longer for some, wherever feels comfortable. Wherever feels comfortable. And then we inhale, sitting up nice or standing up nice and tall. You can keep the hands on the hips as always, and then we just start tilting the pelvic bone forward to wherever you feel the hamstring stretch. And then we can bring our hands to our knees if we want, or you can keep your hands on your hips. Just breathing here. Making sure this right hip is staying nice and square with the left. There's a lot going on here, but it's a beautiful stretch for the hamstring. And then if you want to have a little bit of fun, you can come up onto that right foot and come into a version of Warrior 3. So once again, keeping the hips nice and square. If you want to add on the arms, you're welcome to do so. And then inhaling your way back up through center, or just stepping to the front of your mat if you're in pyramid. Just taking a breath here. Okay, so let's switch sides and step back with the right foot, keeping the feet nice and wide. And again, kind of playing with what feels good, where it feels good. And then our right back foot's at about 45 degrees. We inhale, standing up nice and tall, and then we exhale once again, just really tilting that pelvic bone and just finding the spot that feels good. If you do have a bit more range of motion, you can use blocks to go down. I don't have that range of motion, so I stay up nice and high. And we just hang out here, breathing into it, breathing into the stretch in the back of the leg and the hamstrings. Trying to keep the knee straight without locking it into place. We want to stretch out the hamstrings, but we don't want to lock our knee into place. And then again, checking in with the hips, making sure that right hip isn't creeping back. Mine was a little bit. So just pulling that right hip forward. And then again, if you want to add on, play a little bit, lift that right leg up, drop the hip down nice and square, and then come into our Warrior 3. This is really good for strengthening the glutes, which is great for helping our lower backs. And then inhaling, coming back up through center. And dropping the feet. Beautiful. So let's move to the floor. We're not going to do anything fancy to get there. We're just going to sit down. Now, most of the time when we're sitting, our pelvic bone just wants to roll backwards. So blankets or bolsters are very helpful for correcting that. The first thing we're going to do is come into a hip opener. So it's up to you if you want to go into cow face, or if you want to come into fire log, where our legs are stacked one on top of the other, almost vertically, in line with the top of the mat. So I find this one to be actually a bit more intense on the hips, so I like it a lot. But it's totally up to you on which one you want. Opening our hips is going to give us more movement in that pelvic bone. So we're just going to stay here, keeping in mind that we're keeping that nice arch in our lower back. We're always very focused on that in our practice. And just breathing here. And then if you'd like to add, you can just start folding a little bit forward. Again, keeping that lower back nice and straight. So we're not rounding into it. We're not letting the posterior pelvic tilt win. And then we'll inhale back through center. And if you are doing the fire log, we'll switch which foot, either one, we'll just switch sides, switch what leg is on top. I don't know if you can hear the squeaking from the dog downstairs, but that's what he's worried about. So inhale, sitting up nice and tall, and then exhale, just start leaning forward a little bit. Really drawing the sit bones down. We don't want our butt to be lifting off of the floor at all. So if you're coming off of the floor with the glutes, then we just sit back a little bit. For some, just sitting up might be plenty, and that is okay. And then coming back up through center, let's just keep our glutes on our blanket. We'll just bring our knees in and just start windshield wiping side to side. Just a little bit of a release. And then we're going to come to the floor for the rest of our practice. So let's get rid of our get rid of our blocks. And then when we're lying down on the floor, it's best to keep a blanket underneath our lower back because it helps to keep it from being flat to the floor. So we're keeping that same idea, that same arch, so to speak, in the lower back, but realistically, it's just correcting what we have. So let's just start by coming into our figure 4, supine figure 4. So this might be enough. If you have the range of motion, you can come up a little bit. We don't want the right glute to come off of the floor though. Sorry, Chewy. So if we're rolling up like this, that's no good. That's just making our entire back round. So we want to come in, find that nice spot, and really drive that right glute to the floor. We just breathe here. Feeling this nice stretch into those backs of the hamstring, backs of the glutes, the hips. And then drawing that right foot to the floor. Let's just let that left foot fall over to the side and come into a twist on our left side. If you'd like to look over the left hand, you're welcome to do so. And here your left hip will be up and off the floor, and that's fine. Just finding that spot where you can come into a nice twist. If this is too much, there's always blocks and bolsters you can prop yourself up with. And then inhaling back up through center, release the left foot, and we will switch to the right. So same thing on this side. You're welcome to roll up if you want to kind of catch the leg, I guess. But then we want to keep that left glute drawing towards the floor. And so same thing here. We just keep those hip bones attached to the floor. You can kind of play with pressing that right knee out to the side just to add on a little bit more of a stretch. And then we drop the left foot down, drop the right foot over, and bring our hands out to the sides, come into our twist on the right side. Closing the eyes if you'd like, or keeping a soft gaze. Twists are a very, very welcome release for the lower back, as we find when we stretch the lower back and when we start really trying to strengthen the lower back, it gets kind of sore, and we don't want to round the back too much. We don't want to keep doing what we were doing, so twisting is a really good in between. Then inhaling back up through center, release the legs, and let's just let the knees fall side to side. Beautiful. And then just coming down, we'll just come into a couple minutes here, a couple minutes of Savasana. So you're welcome to pause the video if you want to have a little bit of a longer Savasana. Even though we were just kind of working through some things, we're just workshopping some things, it's always important to find some stillness at the end of your practice. So let's try to relax down to the mat, releasing any controlled breathing, and releasing any worries or any expectations. And just coming to that place of stillness where your mind can be still as well. Trying not to let it wander, and knowing that if it does, just to bring it back to the mat, back to the space. Just starting to bring some awareness back, wiggling into the fingers and the toes, and slowly starting to make your way up to seated. Finding your way, however you get there. And then bringing that blanket underneath the glutes one last time. Sitting up nice and tall, maybe switching the cross of the legs. Just closing the eyes. And just taking a moment of gratitude for showing up on your mat today. Let's close our practice with one cleansing breath. So big inhale.